Let's talk about your backhand. We find that most beginner to intermediate players tend to struggle with their backhand, and in this video, we're gonna go over all things backhand. We're talking backhand return, backhand drive, backhand dink, backhand counter, and some more. And we're even gonna go over when to use a two-handed backhand.
And be sure to stay to the end because we're giving away $1,000 worth of Selkirk store credit, split evenly amongst 5 lucky winners. So stay to the end to figure out how to enter.
Let's roll. So the first backhand shot that we're gonna go over is the backhand return. What do you do when somebody returns it to your backhand? Well, there are really 2 types of backhand returns. A backhand slice return, or even a two-handed backhand return with forward momentum. We're gonna go over both of those, and we're gonna start with the backhand slice.
So first we're going to talk about the backhand slice return. Something to keep in mind with this particular shot is it provides a really difficult drop shot for your opponents because there's a lot of spin on the ball. So that's one reason why it's really good to use. However, there is a disadvantage to this shot because you're putting a lot of that backspin on the ball. If you're playing opponents that have really strong topspin drives, that's a really easy ball for them to drive because of the way it bounces and it adds a lot more spin. So keep that in mind if you decide to hit this shot. Mechanics wise, a way to do this is I want you to imagine like a backwards Nike sign. It's a high to low shot movement. I like to cock my wrist and keep it still through the entire shot. You go down like a Nike sign and up, and make sure that you're really pushing forward momentum through this shot. That way you're getting pace on that ball. So that's a really quick kind of rundown of how to hit that backhand slice return.
Next, we're gonna talk about the two-handed backhand return. This is probably my go-to return because when you add that second hand on the paddle, it gives you increased stability and control. When you're gonna add that off hand to the paddle, make sure that you choke up on the paddle and put your finger up on the paddle like this. This will give you much more control than if you just held the paddle at the top of the handle. So again, finger on the paddle. Next thing you're gonna wanna keep in mind is that you're gonna wanna get low. You kinda want your shoulders to stay level with the ball. So if the ball doesn't bounce very high, you really have to get low. Then you're gonna pull that paddle back to your backside hip or kinda just above that backside pocket. You're gonna use your legs and rotate with your kinetic chain. And you really don't need a big follow through on the return. That's because you're using pace from the serve and you're also using your legs. So you really don't need to finish up here for this shot. You can kind of load up, use your feet, and then finish right in front of your body. Some advantages to this shot is that if you master the footwork, it is going to be pretty easy to control. It's going to be a nice, flat, deep return. Some disadvantages are you do have to practice the footwork, and it can be pretty difficult to hit this shot if you're off balance, if the serve were to push you out wide or push you deep into the court.
Similar to the return, there are 2 main types of backhand dinks, the backhand slice and the backhand roll dink. So first we're gonna go through the backhand slice. Now with this, you're putting backspin on the ball, meaning that ball's spinning towards you. So what's really great about this shot is it throws off the timing to your opponents that's hitting it because that backspin is going to make that ball jump towards the net a lot of the times. And what's also great about it is it's a dink that gives you time to kind of reset. So personally for me, I like to hit a slice if I'm off balance because it's a little bit more of a defensive way for me to get back in the point with my footwork. Mechanically, how to hit this shot is to have your paddle tip up, your wrist locked in place, and again, that same Nike sign going high, low, and then ending high again. So what it's gonna look like is something like this. And remember, a little spin goes a long way. Don't chop the ball. That's maybe the biggest mistake I see. Keep that wrist locked and think high, low, back to high, and you'll have a killer backhand slice dink.
So now that we've gone over the backhand slice dink, we're gonna go over the two-handed backhand dink. This is a dink that you're rolling with topspin. Some advantages to this dink are you can actually really add pressure by creating angles in that dipping motion onto the ball. You also have the opportunity to speed up off the bounce. Rarely are you gonna speed up off the bounce with a one-handed backhand in pickleball. So when you add that second hand, it's that surprise factor. Am I gonna dink it or am I gonna speed it up? The first thing I want you to know when it comes to hitting this shot is you really need to get down low. Sit down almost like you're sitting in a seat. When you're nice and low, you can actually see the bottom half of the ball. If you were to cut this ball in half and there's an equator, you want to make contact with the southern hemisphere. So getting nice and low will allow you to see the bottom half of the ball. That's step one. Step two is that your left hand, your non-dominant hand, is going to do the work. If you think of those two things, get low, see the bottom of the ball, and then your non-dominant hand does the work, you're gonna do much better when it comes to hitting this shot. This is a low to high motion where you're gonna brush the bottom of the ball, see the bottom half of the ball, and then you're gonna brush up on the ball. See how I'm using my legs, sitting nice and low. Right there, I even let the ball kind of fall or come to its apex and then begin to decelerate. That's a great tip anytime you're hitting topspin, is to try to let the ball decelerate or fall from the apex. So if you implement these things, you're gonna have a killer two-handed backhand dink. Now we're gonna go over the two-handed backhand drive. Now this is gonna have some overlap with the two-handed backhand return that we talked about earlier in the video. Again, you're gonna have your off hand, you're gonna put that finger up on the paddle. That left hand's gonna do a lot of the work. If you remember back to that return, we were kind of having a nice short compact swing and we're using our legs and forward momentum to take ourselves to the kitchen. Now, when it comes to the drive, instead of this ball being as flat, we want more kind of dipping motion. We want more top spin. So again, we don't want to pull the paddle too far back. We kind of want to pretend there's a brick wall here. Just pull the paddle right back to that backside hip. With this shot on the drive, it's really important that you step into the shot, and you really need to make sure that you get low so that you can brush the bottom of the ball. All right, so this is kind of what it's gonna look like. Again, you're gonna wanna get really low. You're gonna wanna step into the shot, and that way you can brush the bottom of the ball, and that ball had a nice dipping motion to get down and force your opponents to hit up on the ball. Hopefully you'll get an easier ball to drop in transition or create a pop-up. And that's the basics of the two-handed backhand drive.
Now we're gonna go over my favorite shot in pickleball, which is the two-handed backhand counter. What I love about this shot is it gives you really good power and really good control. So the first thing I like to show people is the grip. It's really important to stack your hands on top of each other, and I personally like to keep this finger on the back side of the paddle. With this shot, it's really important that your left hand does the majority of the work. Your right hand is simply there to stabilize. So I want you to really remember that when you're channeling this shot. Biggest thing to remember is that you are loading your feet, and it's a very small movement actually. You don't have this huge backswing. I like to keep my paddle in front of the kitchen line at all times, and it's pushing forward almost like you're pushing to get to the ready position. Again, it's really compact, really short, but it's really powerful when you hit that sweet spot on your paddle. Thanks so much for watching this video, and make sure you like and subscribe to the PlayPickleball.com YouTube channel.
And as we mentioned in the beginning of the video, we're giving away $1,000 worth of Selkirk store credit, split evenly between 5 lucky winners. To enter, click this link. You can also find this link in the description below. We'll see you on the next one.